Good evening and welcome to an in-person alumni panel, which is really nice to have. My name is Mary O'Malley, in case you don't know me, and I have been here since 1997, and we've had this event ever since I've been here. I don't know how many actual annual ones we've had, but usually I taught some of the children, and this is the first time that, unfortunately, I never was able to teach any of these. I was your advisor, any of these fine students. I started out teaching, I was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade language arts teacher for years, then I was middle school coordinator for a while, and now I'm the alumni coordinator. And we have 165 alumni in high school now, and we have 13 of them here tonight. And Mr. T came to visit us while we were eating dinner. He told us that's about 9%, correct? We have a wonderful sampling, because every single one of these kids I asked first said yes. And they all showed up. So I want to thank you for that. And today I heard it was National Sandwich Day, which is strange, and I was on the way to pick up Jimmy John's, and they said it was National Sandwich Day. And then I thought it'll be perfect for the alumni panel too, because I've sort of changed the questions. The format's the same, but I made the questions, we're going to start out a little general, and then the meat of our panel will be specific questions regarding the respective high schools, because each high school, of course, has its own program that makes it a good fit, or maybe it wasn't a good fit during their selection process that they discovered, and then we'll end it with some more general questions. So I'm going to start out a little general. What is the most helpful advice you could give to middle school students as they begin and engage in the high school search and selection process? Just one piece of advice to start. Emily Hackwalder. Emily Hackwalder is a sophomore at Park Tudor.
Yeah, I would say just go with your gut. Like, all of the schools that are represented here are really great schools, and you'll do really great at any of them. So it's really important to think about not just like what schools have great programs, but also where you feel like you can fit best into the community.
Charlotte. Charlotte is a senior at Cathedral, and this is Charlotte's 3rd time on the alumni panel.
This is advice that I'm like constantly remembering now as I'm applying to colleges, but just try to remember to just take a breath and just don't be fully absorbed in, oh my gosh, I need to figure this out. What am I doing for high school? Just take a breath and enjoy where you're at as you figure things out.
Go ahead, Lauren. Lauren Genera. She's a junior at university.
Yeah, so one of my younger cousins just started high school this year, and he was asking me tons of questions about like high school and what my experience is like. Some of the questions he asked were just absolutely hilarious, like, am I gonna have to do drugs? Am I gonna have to have my head shoved in the toilet, stuff like that? And I was like, Al, no, just stop right there. You can make your high school experience whatever you want it to be. So if you want to be surrounded by people who are gonna support you and help you and be your best at your school, then you can absolutely do that. So it's really what you want to make it.
Mukund Sagi is a freshman at Carmel.
So at the end of that day, I really think that all high schools, they're not that bad. And eventually, if you go there, you're going to suit the high school to yourself, all of your needs. So it just doesn't really matter where you go, but sometimes it does matter the amount of opportunities and sometimes other things that you get.
Go ahead, Annabelle Homersinski is from Zionsville. She's a junior.
I would say that the most important thing is to really just consider all the schools, because you don't know what specific things you necessarily want right now. So go shadow all the schools you want, go look at all the opportunities they offer, because you don't want to just have one school in mind, because if that doesn't work out, then you have to have some backups and they'll be just as awesome.
Now you're from Zionsville, but that was not your deciding factor.
Yeah.
What was your deciding factor?
So I'm a competitive swimmer, and I've been swimming since the age of 6, and so I was really deciding between Brebeuf and Zionsville. But since I've been on Zionsville Swim Club for so long, I've had a really close-knit community of swimmers and my best friends that I've been swimming with. And the swim program is a little stronger at Zionsville than it is Brebeuf, so that was one of my main deciding factors.
Okay, I'm going to ask Hudson, as you were going through the process of considering high schools, what variables did you consider most and what was the deciding factor for you? And Hudson is a senior at North Central.
So I really only shadowed 2 schools. I shadowed North Central and University, but both schools I had a really great shadowing experience. But at North Central, my shadower, I didn't know him, he wasn't from North Central, but he played soccer and was very academically inclined. And so I kind of just saw myself kind of following what he could do and how he has really created a community just in his classes or from soccer, and I thought that was like really enticing to me, and I just overall thought the school was a great fit when I shadowed it.
And you just told me at dinner time that it's been wonderful for you. What adjective did you use to describe it?
I used exhilarating.
Does anybody else want to discuss helpful advice or any variables that you considered in the deciding factor before we get more specific? Sia Patel is a senior at Park Tudor, and Sia actually just broke the Park Tudor girls golf record, and then I believe she broke her own record after that.
Yeah, it was a good goal.
Broke it twice. She was the Wish TV Athlete of the Week.
Yeah, it was a really good golf season this fall. And I would say with variables, I wanted a close-knit community. I kind of wanted Sycamore just a little bigger, just because I really valued those like teacher relationships and kind of knowing a lot of people. And with Park Tudor, it is a very close-knit school, and you get to know all your classmates, all your teachers. You get great recommendation letters, and it's also athletics. You can play any sport. I mean, I picked up basketball my freshman year and played all through my junior year, and then I picked up swimming this year. So you can also be super serious about them. Like for golf, my coaches helped me obviously get all the achievements that I was able to obtain this season, but you can also just play sports for fun and meeting people.
Also talking about variables, so when I was going through my high school process, Cathedral was actually mostly on my list because of my parents. And the shadow day really confirmed that Cathedral actually had what I was looking for, and I wanted there to be a strong community, and I wanted to keep swimming in high school. And my shadow host actually was on the swim team, and when she heard that I wanted to swim, she took me to meet some of the other swimmers who we sat with at lunch. She took me to meet the coach, and that experience was what sold me on Cathedral.
This is Bridget Bodie. She's a senior at Carmel.
Yeah, so I go to Carmel. There's almost 6,000 students there. I didn't really want to go there at first. I thought the school was way too big. It was so different from Sycamore. But my advice is you shouldn't take a school off your list just because it's big. Like Carmel and other public schools like North Central, they're obviously going to be a lot bigger than schools like Park Tudor and Cathedral. But you can really easily form your own community in those schools. Like if you're in sports, you see those people almost every day of the week. If you're in band or orchestra, you see them all the time. Even in just specific clubs, you see people over and over. And even though the school is huge, you can make your own smaller community.
So basically you answered my next question, and I want Mukon to talk a little bit about what you just said, because at dinner when we were eating, you told me how scared you were at first, and then about the kids you see and why you see them, the same kids all the time. So you want to explain to the group what we were talking about?
So first when I went to Carmel, I was obviously a little bit scared because there's 6,000 kids. I didn't know even close to any of them. So sometimes you think oh, I'm not going to have any friends. And what you really realize is that once you go to a school and the classes you take and the clubs you get interested in, they really bring you into this community of learning or sports or something like that. And once you get into that community, like Bridget said, you keep seeing the same people over and over again, and they become really, really good friends.
And I'm going to go down to the North Central guys down there. I put the 2 big high schools as bookends here. Jake Lee, Jake's a sophomore at North Central, and What would you recommend to make the transition from Sycamore to North Central easier, to the big public school from the very small private school?
So yeah, obviously the difference was a lot bigger since at Sycamore, I've just been kind of living in almost like a bubble, kind of in a good way, because you've had those relationships with teachers and all your friends your whole life. And that was honestly one of the appealing factors for me when I wanted to go to North Central. I kind of wanted a school where I could spread my wings a bit more, and I really like how vast and big the school is. I feel like it has so many opportunities to offer. Like, I'm involved in several different activities, and I just have so many people that I know, and I still see new people every single day, so I really like how big the school is, because I just have so many different things I can do.
And it's something for you to say that, because actually you and Sophie Farnham were the only 2 freshmen last year. So it's not even like you had a bunch of people from your class, a big group go, because sometimes to North Central will have quite a few, and that's different because you see them at lunch and you can sort of rely on them in the beginning. And I saw Constantine, you had your hand up. You want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Constantine is a senior at university.
I think that obviously like high school is going to be scary no matter where you go, whether it's like 350 student university, or like huge schools like Carmel and Central. But for me, it's really what you do. Like, I think that getting involved, for example, in a sport or a club and aligning yourself with students of maybe a similar interest, maybe not similar like viewpoints, but similar interest, is a great way to get integrated into school community. And that's really how, for example, I joined the soccer team my freshman year, and starting like practices and open fields with them like a month before school even began allowed me to like have a friend group before school even started, which is a great way. But it doesn't have to be a sport; it can really be anything. And I think that's like the biggest piece of advice I give incoming middle schoolers is try new things, or incoming high schoolers. Yeah.
And if some opportunity comes up during the summer, like you said, like a summer gym,
Right.
I think Rebuff does.
Right, yeah, there's like summer
meet
classes
kids
as
ahead of
well. I know that's like one of the best ways. And don't feel like you're missing anything if you don't take advantage of those, but I would say that's a very good way to get into school.
Great, thanks, Constantine. Okay, regarding the big high schools, Carmel has the freshman center, and Wukon is a freshman, so do you want to explain to the audience a little bit about the freshman center? Because it's almost like you're secluded a bit from the rest of the student population.
So I think the freshman center is a really nice area because even like in a school of 6,000 students, you're confined to like 1,200 people who are all freshmen. And a lot of the time you're grouped up on the same floor of all those people who have like similar interests or are taking similar classes and everything. A nice thing about it is you get to like see them every day in the freshman center. It's almost like this little bubble like Sycamore. And in that bubble you kind of like grow before you actually get released into like the big hallways.
So you get released into the big hallways next year. And so, Bridget, could you talk about the big hallways?
Yeah, so there's like the A hallways, the B hallways, the E hallways. They're all kind of split up by like science, math, foreign language, English, history. Honestly, the layout isn't that complicated. The school itself isn't that big in terms of like square footage. It's really just all the people. Like you're really sardined in there when you're trying to get through some of the hallways.
You are sardined in there, you're saying?
Yeah, like sometimes you can't really move.
Like big hallways. Want to talk about your music there, band?
Yeah, I play the flute, so I've been in band and orchestra for 4 years. They're very serious about performing arts there, and the state gives them like a really huge budget. So, and they also recently updated the performing arts complex. It's a really good program. Even if you're doing orchestra, I don't think we offer orchestra here at Sycamore, but if you're interested and you want to go to Carmel, you should definitely join because you're going to see those people every blue day or every gold day. And if you get into a high orchestra, you're also going to see them after school on weekly practices. And I think it's just a really great opportunity to get involved further.
So your colors are blue and gold, right? And so what's a blue day and a gold day?
So you can pick 7 classes. So there's 4 classes on blue days, and on gold days you have 3, and you also have SSRT. The entire school has like
And what does SSRT mean?
They added a second S. I don't know what it stands for.
It's serious. You got something to do with being responsible, right?
Yeah. So If you're like a freshman, it kind of helps you to get used to the school. You, no matter what grade you are, you can get a pass from your teacher to go get help. I'm in a peer tutoring SRT, so you can also like become a tutor for other students. There's also like NHS officer SRT, so they get more specific as you get like older, and like juniors and seniors.
Good, thank you. Okay, North Central. You had a start time change. So Hudson, for 3 years, school started at 7:30, right? And ended at, I don't know what time you ended, 3, maybe, no, 2 something. 2:35, okay, and so now you start at?
8:30, and then it goes to 3:30.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how was that this year?
Honestly, I think it worked out really well. So when they had the new time change, they also had a lot of construction. So that caused some difficulties with busing. But I think it actually, so to remedy this, students, like the buses wouldn't get to school on time. So they added a 30-minute homeroom to every day, which homeroom used to only be on Tuesdays. So it's just a 30-minute buffer at the beginning of the day. So students who, like because of busing issues, couldn't make it to their first period class. But now this homeroom time has become one of the best parts of the day, because I can kind of work on whatever I need to work on, collect my thoughts for the day, and it's just a great way to ease into the day. And I'm in National Honor Society, and so I'm in my National Honor Society homeroom, so that also allows us to get more done for the club, and so it's just turned into a really productive use of time.
Great. How about you, Jake?
Yeah, I haven't been at North Central as long as Hudson has, but last year, if I'm going to be totally honest, I was a little bit tired through the day because it was pretty early start. I woke up at 6 every morning. I was a little worried when it got pushed back an hour that after-school activities would be a little bit rough because they would be even further back. But I found that it's really worked out. Like Hudson said, it's really been fine. I really do like the homeroom in the morning too. I use that study hall all the time. And yeah, I think it's just been fine. I really like this schedule as it is now. More sleep.
And one last thing about North Central for now, I want you to discuss the IB program. Explain what that's all about, what it stands for.
The IB program stands for International Baccalaureate, and it's a global program that kind of encourages students to think, I guess, open-mindedly and cover a wide variety of subjects and to be kind of well-rounded in their academic studies. So there are, I believe, 6 different categories. Your science, math, history, language, let's see, I don't know, but 6 of them. And so you pick a class from each of your studies, and a lot of North Central does it a little bit differently than some of the other IB schools. So your classes, a lot of them have the IB curriculum integrated into the classes. And so when you sign up for IB, you sign up on your junior, and so it's your junior and senior year. And so you start with your classes junior year. And so some of them are specialized classes. So I took anthropology, which was a specialized IB class. And so you go through the curriculum as normal, just like a regular class. And then you have 2 assessments for each class. One is called an internal assessment, which is kind of like a medium-sized project that you do for each of your classes. So for anthropology, I observed people in a Starbucks and connected it back to the curriculum that we were learning about. And then I wrote a little report on it, and then you submit it to the IB people to grade. And so that's one of your assessments. And the next one is a written test at the end of the year, kind of like an AP test, which is just kind of another standardized test. And then you get your scores back, and then over the 2 years, you kind of accumulate points for a IB diploma, which colleges think it's really good to have an IB diploma, so that's a plus. But it also just kind of promotes different ways of thinking, and it asks a lot of hard but really impactful questions in class, and I'd say it's definitely worth doing if that's something you're interested in.
Very good, thanks a lot. Okay, now let's move on to Brebeuf freshman. Julia Watson's a freshman at Brebeuf, and she's going to explain to you their freshman seminar program.
So, freshman seminar is a class that you have once every 8-day rotation, which is just kind of every 8 days you have different classes every day. So one day out of that 8-day rotation, you'll have freshman seminar, which is led by your academic counselor, or essentially like your advisor, just for more people. And they kind of teach you about, or they'll kind of teach you about clubs, how rebuff works. I'm trying to remember what we did. We did a mindfulness yesterday, I think. So we did an entire class on mindfulness and learned about like the class you could take and how to keep mindful during stressful times. And it's just a good prepper for a lot of things. Like we went over GPA and a bunch of things you might need to know throughout your high school experience. They just make sure you know.
So it's every 8 days. And how long does it last? Is it a regular class period?
It's an hour, so we're
Is it considered a class, or is it just something extra that's worked in every 8 days?
It is considered a class, but every day you don't have that class, it is considered your break period. So you'll have an hour.
The PRT time?
Mm-hmm.
Do they call it that still? I don't remember if they still say that.
PRTs are 2 30-minute periods in a day, and since it's Wednesday, we only have one because we have a late start.
Okay.
But break periods are, instead of a class, you should have an hour break to do whatever you need. So like a study hall, you can go out to get lunch or something.
And PRT is personal responsibility time.
Where you can go anywhere in the school and do whatever you need to.
But you can't leave the school.
Not as a freshman.
All right, Sam, I'm going to have Sam talk about the Ignatian Scholars Program, which I think you start sophomore year, isn't that the year that it begins?
Yeah.
This is Sam Rudofsky, he's a sophomore at River.
Yeah, I think that what she said about the PRTs leads into this pretty nicely, because the Ignatian Scholars Program is just one example of what you can accomplish during these PRTs. So as she said, it's 2 35-minute breaks per day. And you might hear her talk about breaks and hear her talk about PRTs and think that it's going to be a lot of break time, but it doesn't really shake out to be that way. These are the times where you can meet with teachers, you can go to clubs. It's what they have instead of having clubs be after school, which works out very nicely for a schedule where you might want to participate in sports after school or work after school outside of the school. But during Ignatian Scholars, it's a program that you can apply for during your freshman year. You send in an application, you do essays, and similar to something you would send to a high school or perhaps like some type of outside of school scholarship program. And if you get in, which is something that it's limited, so if you do apply, you might not get in, but if you do get in, it really opens up a lot of great opportunities. So this year I started doing Ignatian Scholars, and it's already done something really nice for me. So in Ignatian Scholars, you'll have people come in and they'll talk to you. You can talk to people who might work jobs that you'd be interested in, or we've worked on creating resumes and doing other stuff that would help you when it comes to colleges or applying for jobs. And just one example of how helpful it can be is that a couple weeks ago, we had people from the NCAA come in and talk to us about jobs in sports media, which is something that I'm very interested in. I'm the sports editor for a newspaper. And when I was able to talk to them afterwards, they were very excited to have someone be interested in possibly interning there or shadowing there. And they actually have been in contact with my advisor, and it was just really great to have an opportunity to open that up and now potentially get a chance to shadow at NCAA during the Big Ten tournament, which is something they were talking about. So that's just one of the many examples of paths that it can open up for you. And Ignatian Scholars, if you do go to Brebeuf, is a very valuable program. And I think it's one of the reasons that Brebeuf has preparatory in its name. It can really prepare you very well for the next level.
Very good. Okay, now I'm going to move on to university, and let's discuss the J term and their unique mentoring program.
I can talk about mentoring. So I think mentoring has to be one of my favorite parts about university's community, just because of how individualized and how personalized it is. When you apply at university, I think there's like a form you fill out of like your interests and things like that, and they use that to pair you with a mentor or a faculty member that you are going to really connect with. So me and my mentor both like love reading, we love talking to people, we're very social, so that's something that we are able to really connect on. And I think the best part about it is that you always have a person at university who can kind of guide you through your classes, through mental health issues, through any problem or question you may have. They're always there to talk to you, and they'll always reach out to you too.
And also, don't you have the mentor for 4 years?
Yes, you do.
And then at graduation, the mentor.
Yeah, they'll always like present you with any awards you have, and they'll keep the like red letter for you and things like that.
And I think they stand up when you're getting your diploma, and they're the ones that give you your diploma. It is very special.
Yeah, and I think that that's a unique bond that is like uniquely university. For example, like with my mentor, I mean, as long as you keep your grades up, obviously, you get to talk about him with whatever you want. Like, I have a mentor named Dr. Hogan, who's a physics teacher, and we talk about his daughter, who's like an infant. We talk about soccer, robotics, anything, and it's really interesting to have that like adult perspective in your life, and someone who's really just a friend to you. And so J-term stands for January term. Another thing that's really uniquely university, and you won't find anywhere else. I mean, you'll probably find it, but uniquely university.
You won't find it here. You won't find it here.
Right, and it's a period in which you come back from winter break, and instead of getting immersed into your second semester, you actually have 3 weeks for the whole month of January studying one topic. And these are obviously educational topics, but not necessarily a core curriculum. For example, this year I'm going to be doing Southwest culture, and we're going to be studying for 3 weeks Native American cultures in the region of Arizona, and we're going to travel there as well for a few days, which is super interesting. And I think this is a great way to ease yourself back into the school year after winter break and learn something new. And yeah, and this also is a time, especially for upperclassmen, you can do an internship during this time. It's like a break off of school, but that's not vacation, which is something that my friends have taken advantage of.
Great, thanks. Okay, now let's move on to Park Tutor. And Sia is going to discuss the Global Scholars Program.
Yeah, so this is a special program to Park Tutor. So your junior year, it starts your junior year, it's a junior-senior program. So your junior year, you take Philosophy of Knowing, which is a class that meets, so we have a 2-week schedule basically, and so it meets 5 out of the 10 days. And that is just where you start to learn about philosophy, and you have a teacher. The teacher teaches both your junior and senior classes. Then your senior year, you have Philosophy of Knowing 2, which the entire year you're working on a research project, and you're either writing a paper or doing a presentation. Actually, you do write a paper, and then you as well do a presentation. And in around March, springtime of your senior year, you present that. And it's a really actually cool opportunity because you get to get in touch with outside advisors. So my friend is in touch with Vanderbilt professors, and that's who she's getting research from and data from, and she's able to talk to them. It's as well, I'm not sure any other high schools have the Global Scholars Project, but it's also another thing you can put on your transcript. And one thing I did want to touch on is Park Tutor doesn't have different diplomas like North Central and Carmel. All of our classes are honors, so we don't have honors English. We only have regular classes and then AP classes, but at the bottom of your transcript, it does say all classes are honors unless otherwise specified.
Okay, Emily Hackwelder. Emily Hackwelder is a Carolyn D. Bradley scholarship recipient, meaning she received, it's a very prestigious scholarship, she received 4-year tuition, merit-based scholarship, and she chose to go to Park Tutor because it's really for any high school in the country. And so why don't you talk a little bit about why you chose Park Tutor and other things about it, because in general we were talking, you said I could go on and say so many things, except about global scholars because you're only a sophomore. Yeah. So that'll be an opportunity for you next year.
Yeah, so with receiving this scholarship, it kind of opened up a lot of doors that were not really previously open to me. So I started looking at boarding schools, which, I mean, obviously there are a lot of cool opportunities. I have a friend who actually won the same scholarship and chose to go to boarding school. But I felt like Park Tutor really had the community that I kind of clicked with, if that makes sense. Like when I shadowed, something just sort of felt right, and it just all kind of started to fall into place. That sounds really cheesy, but Yeah, and also just not wanting to leave home. It definitely contributed to me deciding to become a park tutor. And also, I'm like really interested in fine arts. Like, I'm doing theater. Our play actually opens tomorrow, and I'm involved in that. So, Park Tutor just has a really great theater department. There's lots of opportunities for really not just theater, but fine arts in general. Like, we have a trip that we go to New York City every year. I went last year, and we got to see a bunch of Broadway shows and like meet the cast of the Music Man on Broadway, which is really cool. Yeah, there's just a whole lot of opportunities that I felt like I couldn't get even if I traveled all the way across the country. And with the Global Scholars thing that Sia talked about already, I felt like Park Tutor was just perfect for me.
Thanks. Okay, let's go to Zionsville. Annabelle, could you explain your hybrid schedule, like different days of the week? Or actually, also the block scheduling is what I mean, the hybrid block.
Yeah, so at Zionsville we have white, green, and silver days. And so Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, it's a 7-period day. But then Tuesdays, you'll have 4 of your periods for an hour and 30 minutes roughly. And then Wednesdays, we have late starts, so we actually start at 9:07, which is a very specific time. But we have 3 of our classes, and then we have a math period.
Did you say math?
Yeah.
AP?
Yeah. Which is a time where you can go ask your teachers questions if you need extra help, which I love to do because at Sycamore I would go in to see my math teacher probably every morning, and that's just something that I like to continue to do throughout Zionsville because I think that getting extra help is super helpful and important in order to succeed. So that's our schedule at Zionsville.
Anything else you want to tell them about Zionsville? We just don't have that many kids go there over the years yet.
Yeah, so I think that Zionsville is a super awesome school because there's about 2,500 students, which isn't as big as Carmel or North Central, but then it's not like as little as University or LaBeouf or some of these smaller schools. So that was just a really perfect fit for me because I loved Sycamore, but I wanted to be able to walk in the hallways and not know everyone's name, but still have a tight community where people would still walk with me and they could still say hi to me in the hallways. And even though people think, oh yeah, public school, like you might not be able to find your crowd, I am in 5 APs and 1 honors class, and so I still find all my people. Not all of them are swimmers, but it's just super easy to make friends there and super easy to get involved in a lot of things.
Great, thanks. Okay, and Charlotte, Cathedral. What do you want them to know about Cathedral?
So with Cathedral, we have a peer mentoring program that's for juniors going into their senior year, but also it's very important for freshmen. So every year, about like 60 or 70 juniors are chosen out of like 160 people who apply to get training to become peer mentors during the first semester of their senior year. And as incoming freshmen, students are typically put in a resource class where then the peer mentors are put in that resource class with them, and they are there just as an older student, like helping guide them, and like we have projects we do with them, and it's all about just making sure that not only do they feel like they have the teacher support and have friends that they're making in their grade, but it's from like older students helping like look out for them and helping them adjust as well. And with that, we actually have a new program this year for all the grades called our core program, which I know you're going to ask this. It is an acronym, and it stands for Companions on the Road to Excellence. And it is a fully student-based program. So like we have meetings, right now it's like once a quarter, but I know like they have plans in the coming years to add in more meetings. But it's very, like I said, it's student-led, and it's just a way to like foster bonding in between the classes. So within each like small subsection of the class, there are 4 small groups comprised of 1 senior, 1 junior, 1 sophomore, and 1 freshman. So even as a senior this year, like my core group, like I didn't know any of the other 3 people in it. So it's a great way to like foster leadership and bonding even with people you don't know.
Very nice. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the guidance counseling departments at the school. So this question is for the freshmen and the sophomores, because when you first get there as freshmen, you're not really used to guidance counseling. You haven't had that experience yet. Explain the importance of your school's guidance counseling department, what their role is, and how they can help students, or how they've helped you, and how they can help, especially a freshman and a sophomore. Jake, North Central. Remember, North Central is a very large school, so your answer is going to be very different from...
It is, yeah. So we have about 900 kids in our freshman class, and we only have 3 counselors, so that's really
How many
what...
do you have?
About 900.
But how many counselors do you have?
3 counselors.
3 counselors, so that's a heady load.
For sure. So you really would think that it wouldn't be a personalized experience, but through my freshman year and the beginning of sophomore year, I found that it's really quite the opposite. My counselor has been super helpful all through the beginning. Hudson was mentioning earlier that if there's ever any issues you have with classes, if you have a wrong class or anything, they're just she's super quick to respond.
You email her?
Yes, through email. She responds like in an hour. It's crazy. But she's just been super helpful in helping me decide which classes I should take. She's helped me refer to different people. She's helped me get information on the International Baccalaureate program. I found that it's been super helpful despite how many students each counselor has at our school.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mukund, Carmel. Tell us a little bit about the guidance department at Carmel and how they've helped you.
So I'm not necessarily a fan of our guidance department, especially our counselor.
But that's why I like to ask, because I think that the truth is really important in being realistic.
But the thing she does that's really nice is if you do send an email and you vouch for yourself, she will reply back and she will give you an answer. So no matter what, as long as you vouch for yourself, you'll be fine. And the counselors, they just are there to help you. You're not going to get necessarily the most personalized experience, but you are going to get some like guidance on where you're going to go, what you're doing right now, and like how that's going to help you later.
And at university, your mentor is really your guidance counselor, right? Or do they have a separate guidance counseling? I really don't know.
So as a senior, I've actually spent every study hall and free period living in the college counseling room at my school. We have 2 college counselors there, Maddie and Whitney, who assist like 80 kids. And so aside from just my mentor, I also have a support system specifically geared towards college. But your mentor is really the one that helps orient you to your high school experience. Okay. And then we have a college counselor.
And they start that freshman year, pretty much.
Yeah, that's also something great, is that they start talking to you about college from your freshman year. I remember we had 2 or 3 meetings freshman year with a college counselor, which is something really unique.
Okay. And Sam and Julia, we had a freshman and a sophomore at Rebuff. Can you explain your guidance counseling department?
Yeah, sure. So at Rebuff, I think that when you think of counselor, at least for me coming into Rebuff, I thought there would be something more emotional and
more of a what?
Like more of like an emotional thing with guidance counselors.
Yes,
come
like
to with issues.
Yeah.
And at Rebuff, that's not the case, but they also have opportunities for you to do that as well. But at Rebuff, the guidance, or just your general academic counselor, not your guidance counselor, serves more to help you with class issues. And I remember that there was a scholarship program that I was considering applying for, and I was able to schedule a meeting with them, come in and talk to her about it, see if I wanted to actually decide to go through, the writing the essays and doing all of the things you would need to do to apply for a scholarship. And that was really one helpful thing that happened during my freshman year. They're always there to listen. You can go in there and talk to them about your classes, and also there's plenty of other opportunities for emotional counseling.
I will also say that we have separate departments for academic counseling and college counseling, and while I haven't really experienced the college counseling portion, you get one of each type, so I think second semester of sophomore year you start doing college counseling. I will say my experience with my academic counselor is similar. You get taught a freshman seminar by your academic counselor, so you kind of see them and kind of know them, and they know you a bit better than some bigger schools might. They help you with your classes, and they are there for that, but also they make sure that you're doing okay, because there's a smaller group of people per academic counselor. They can kind of help you with, if you're not having a good time or have a mental health issue, then your academic counselor is really who you would go to first, probably, for that.
So do they also help you select classes for the next year, or do you pretty much do that on your own?
They do. They help you kind of think about what classes you want to take and how to plan out best for what you want to achieve 3 to 4 years.
Great. Do you have something to add, Sam?
Just going off of that, just a quick note, because I've already experienced that. Julia hasn't, but she will pretty soon. That's part of the freshman seminar classes, actually. This is, I think, the most valuable part of freshman seminar, and something you might not be able to get at other schools. We drew out a 4-year plan with every single period until you were a senior, and it's not obviously locked in, but it was a tentative plan for classes that you were interested in taking, and I have it in my Google Drive, so whenever I'm wondering about a class or trying to decide as choosing for next year comes up, I can look at that, and that was something that was very personalized, and they came around and helped us decide what classes we could be interested in. It maybe we were junior or senior, even though we were freshmen when we did it.
Okay, I see some hands up. Emily?
At Park Tutor, we have something that I think seems sort of similar to University's mentor program. Basically what we have, we call them advisors. It's basically, we have groups of about 10 students who share one teacher who kind of is just there for whatever they need, helps them out. And with our advisories, we do lots of activities. It's very similar to the program at Sycamore, really. Like, we'll do everything from choose our classes for the next year to like talk about mental health concerns to like play hangman. It really just depends. And it's just a really great environment. It's a great way to meet new students when you first come into freshman year. To have that like built-in small group of your advisory, and your advisor is just a really great resource.
Charlotte?
So, as I've been going throughout my 4 years at Cathedral, our counseling department has improved tremendously. I didn't say this when I was on the panel my freshman year because the other Cathedral people had just talked about how wonderful Cathedral's counseling department was. But my freshman year counselor, she had a therapy dog in her room named Muffin. And what I always say is my freshman year counselor was about as helpful as Muffin was. Now, my counselor this year that I've had for the past 3 years has been so much better. These past 2 years both, I've had near mental breakdowns at the start of school because scheduling difficulties happened, and I received emails the Monday before school started hey, we're still in the process of finishing your schedule. And my counselor has been wonderful with working with me on that, here's possible solutions, like let's work something out. This year, like she tried everything and they still weren't able to get a class in for me that I wanted to take. So she worked with me to find an online class I could take and helped me set that up. And like, I'm in her room almost every single day, like working on that. If I need anything, like I'm right there and I can ask her. And then with the college counseling department, this year now we have a full-time college counselor whose room I'm also in quite a lot. And like she's just one of my all-time favorite people. She like works and coordinates to have colleges come visit. She has meetings set up where students can like sign up like, hey, I can meet with you, like I need help with this essay, or like, hey, can you just like take a look at my application as a whole? And then for seniors, she'll also like have meetings set up even after school or on the weekends, like, hey, anyone who wants to just show up and get some work done on their application, like come in, I'll be here. She also has snacks, so.
And that is a great segue into my next topic of juniors and seniors and college selection process. So I was talking to Hudson and Sia and Bridget about college choices, and they're applying to many of them. And so right now you're undecided, right? I mean, you have a lot out there, and some really interesting ones, which you can share later if you want. But what support do you get at North Central for your search, selection, and application process?
So I think the whole college experience at North Central is a lot like kind of the school as a whole. So it really is, if you advocate for yourself and take advantage of the resources, you have like the world in front of you. So for North Central, there are weekly bulletins that have like, I guess, writing workshop links or other just college like application information in general. And then in addition to that, North Central is really great about bringing college representatives into our school. So I've had meetings with, I think there's a Purdue one that I went to, an IU one, Northwestern, and Vanderbilt, just off the top of my head, are ones that I've gone to, where it's great to have a small group get together and sit down with one of the college representatives to kind of talk about the various schools and what they're kind of looking for in those applications. But I think that if you kind of have the drive and are willing to kind of reach out and use these resources, I think it's been a great and positive experience overall. But yeah, so the resources are definitely out there despite it being a big school.
Okay, thanks. And Bridget, how about Carmel with your college search, selection, and application process?
At Carmel, it's kind of similar like what Hudson said. You have to advocate for yourself. We have a college and career resource center. They have 3 people working there full time. They're not really, okay, so what they do send out information, but if you want personalized help, you have to go out and ask them. They're not gonna come to you. I mean, they can't, like there's over 1,000 seniors, so you really have to put yourself out there. You have to tell them exactly what help you need. I've gone to them multiple times, especially for help on my essays. They've always been really helpful with that. They can also help you with things like financial aid, and even just like how to pick the college you want, how to pick a major. They can be really helpful. You just need to like put yourself out there. You need to like actually go get the help yourself.
Because your counselors are busier than like Constantine, for example. Can you talk a little bit about college selection and the
I
application
think
process?
that ours is actually the exact opposite, where our college counselors are practically dragging some students into the college counseling room. And obviously that's the difference between small schools and big schools, and there's pros and cons to both. Obviously you have to take more initiative at a big school. But I like that how obviously at a small school you'll find how personalized the whole process is. I think that both college counselors are like really good friends of mine, and they really help you. They can help with like writing, like the actual writing process of essays or any questions you may have. They're available, like Bridget said, like full time in their office. And I think that one of the greatest assets that university has as a high school is like the preparatory, again, in their name, that they really help you prepare for college, and it's really personalized, and they drive it home.
Nice, thanks. And Sia?
Yeah, so Park Tutor, I would say their college counseling department is very strong. So we have 4 college counselors, and they're basically, you get assigned one of those 4 your sophomore year, and you get to know them. For me, it was a little different because my brother did go to Park Tutor, so I got assigned his college counselor, which ended up working. I love her, she's amazing. But I have weekly meetings with my college counselor, and they do everything. I mean, we started this senior year, they got our entire senior class together. They do it every year, and you set up your Common App. I've edited every single one of my essays with her. She's looked over it multiple times. She sends all my documents. The college counseling department is really just there to support you, and if you want to apply to 25 schools, they're gonna let you apply to 25 schools. They may not be happy about it, but or if you just want to apply to one, if IU is your choice, then they will support you no matter what. As well, we have college days, so freshmen don't participate in it, but sophomores, juniors, and seniors, there's 2 days in the fall where college representatives come to our school, and for an entire hour and a half, you walk around and meet with those representatives, and you get to sit in and listen to what they have to say about the college, which is really unique because that's basically like a forced visit into a college, which visiting can be hard because you have to go and travel and actually meet with the colleges and schedule that out, but this is where they come to our school and that you're able to talk to them and make those connections as early as sophomore year.
Thank you. Okay, and I know that you've tested out of things when you were freshmen and you started in the honors or in the AP, but let's talk about class size. So at North Central, what's the average class size you think per teacher?
I'd say around like 30 students. It definitely depends on the class. Some classes have a higher demand than others, but I'd say around like 30.
About 30. Up for Bob.
There's a decently large range, but all the classes are around 20 people. I've had classes where it ranges more towards like 13 people in the class, but there's a range. But it's generally pretty small, either Sycamore-sized classes or a little smaller normally.
I'd say at Zanesville it ranges from 20 to 25, so even though it is a larger school, the class size isn't like extraordinarily high or anything.
I would say for university, it's probably around like 15 to 20, but obviously some classes are going to vary based on the demand.
And we have like a lot of specialized classes as well. Like for example, stained glass is an art class that's available as an elective when you're junior, senior, cool art class like that, and that could be like 5 to 10 kids.
Charlotte, what about theater?
I think depending on what subject it is, there is generally between like 15 to 25 students, just because like every student at cathedral is required to take religion classes. So obviously those classes are a little bigger, just making sure everyone takes it. But the smallest class I've had has actually only had 2 people in it. So there's a whole range. That was the second semester of my Spanish class last year.
We have at max 18 students. That's probably the biggest class you'll get. And then on the smaller side, you can have 4, but on average.
What would be 4? What kind of class would have 4?
Latin 1 was 4 students. Last year, I had like a solo singing class that had 4 students.
So it really depends on the department. If you're taking something more general like a math class, it can be up to like 35 students. But if you're going to something, which Carmel has a really good program for this, like the career technical, like PLTW, Project Lead the Way, it can range from more like 25 to 30.
I had a few parents submit that question, so I thought it was important that we address it, but I figured there had to have been a range. What's one thing you wish you had known before your freshman year about your school? I mean, even something that just wasn't covered in something like this. What's something you wish you knew before you went to Brebeuf last year as a freshman?
So for me entering Brebeuf, it was very daunting just to have, the name Brebeuf, who's a saint, and the Jesuit in the name as well, being someone who's not Christian or Catholic. And I was worried that it would not be very inclusive to people of my religion, or maybe people who didn't have the same beliefs as the people who created the school more than 50 years ago. But I was so wrong in that belief. I mean, Brebeuf is really, if there's anything I could tell anyone about Brebeuf, it would be how accepting it is. They have masses, maybe 4 or 5 a year, but none of the stuff in there is required. Religion classes are required, but they're about as secular as you could get while actually calling them religion classes. It's been really great for me as an experience. Actually, I think it's been better for me to go to a Catholic school because I've been able to see different customs, learn about different customs, and I think that it could even be more diverse and more different customs than some other schools that I could have considered. So if there's one thing that I really could have known before I went to Brebeuf, it would be just that it's not as Catholic as you might think by the name, and it's really inclusive to everyone.
Thank you. Lauren. Oh, do you want to say something, Julia? Okay, go ahead.
There are about 4 or 5 all-school masses, and there are some optional masses, but one thing I just want to point out is we do have 2 PRTs normally a day.
Personal responsibility times.
Personal responsibility times when you can go ask for help during you can go ask for help with teachers that you might need help with. You can go hang out with your friends. Clubs meet during PRTs a lot. I will say they aren't as long as they might seem, so having good time management skills in general is very helpful, but that kind of prepares you for kind of more of a college setup where you might not have classes all in a row.
And you have to use your time responsibly if you want to get your things done, right? Okay, Lauren.
For me, going into my freshman year of high school, especially because of COVID and everything going on, I had a lot of anxiety, just because I'm an anxious person by nature. So it felt like a lot of pressure. So going into that year, I wish I had known just how welcoming and how comforting the university community is. Like, upon entering, even like on shadow day, it just felt like you were home, right? It's just like the most immediate sense of community I've ever felt at any school or academic kind of endeavor.
Yeah, I really want to drive home comfort. Like, it's really, it's incredible to me how it maintains like the academic and athletic rigor that it has with like the comfortable and trusting and respectful environment that it has. I really can't stress that enough. Like, for example, there's no cafeteria. Students just eat around campus. Like, they can lunch with a teacher, talk with them. I mean, it really feels like it's preparing you for college because it trusts you and gives you responsibility.
Thank you. Okay, Annabelle.
One thing I wish I had known my freshman year is that people do want to meet you and talk to you too. It was hard.
That's really good advice.
COVID, but also Zionsville High School. The 2 main schools that feed into it are Zionsville Middle and Zionsville West. So I just assumed that everyone already had their friends, and I would just only have my swim friends, and so I was scared to talk to people. But then once people started talking to me, I was like, oh, people are more welcoming and they want to expand their circle. They want to meet new people just like I want to meet new people. So I think that's super important too.
Very good, thanks. And Charlotte, quickly, what's something you wish you knew?
Similarly to what Sam said, I promise it's not shove it down your throat Catholicism. It is a Catholic school, but it really is welcoming and accepting of everyone. And also, for the parents, Cathedral was named a Blue Ribbon School this year.
Good, thank you. Does anybody in the audience have any questions that they would like to ask at this time? I had some submitted, and I tried to get to all of them. Does anybody want to ask these guys anything? Yes.
So as parents, you get told things in the community, like what you said, that's a pharmacy, that's a drug school, you have to party here. Do you guys feel that any of that's true, or would you say there's bad influences at every high school and you find your crowd?
I can take this one because I think that North Central often is kind of the butt of those rumors, but I think that it's like one or two bad apples at the whole school. So I've had such a positive experience overall, and that when I've actually experienced a lot of those kind of rumors or those kind of things when I'm playing sports, because I think a lot of it is just people saying things without knowing like what goes on in the school. And so I have seen like the kindest people at my school, and it really is just kind of what you make it. If you are a good person who likes to do the right thing, then you'll have absolutely no problem. And I think that it's just good to kind of get to know the individuals in the school and before you kind of make a huge judgment of the school as a whole. So, yeah.
That's very well articulated. Thank you. Move on.
So I think there's always like going to be a few people like that. And I definitely think it's about the environment you put yourself in. Of course, you don't go walking around a shady alley waving $100 bills. But, so just don't put yourself in that type of sketchy environment. And Sycamore really teaches you to stay in like a positive, like good environment.
Thank you, Mukan. That's very good advice. And Sia.
So obviously those are both really big schools, and at Park Tutor you know everybody, you know their parents, you know what they do. So it's really just about what you decide to do. There are going to be people that do party, there are going to be people that do host. But I mean, you can go to a party and not drink, you don't have to do drugs. That's not necessarily like, it's more on you to take the responsibility rather than sitting there and like getting peer pressured. And I think Sycamore does kind of put you in a bubble. You don't really see a lot of drugs and alcohol, especially in middle school. But it does happen, and you're gonna know about it because rumors spread, people talk, but it's just kind of about you and kind of keeping your reputation clean.
Thanks. Okay, is there anything else that any one of you just feels like you really need to say before we call it a night? Lauren.
I want to talk about personal responsibility at university, because I think that's something that Sycamore really drives home as well, with like respect for time and yourself and others.
Do you remember the 4 respects?
Time, property, others, yourself.
Yeah, very good.
And personal responsibility is one of university's core values. And I think one way that it kind of represents that is that we don't have bells at all. So if you're not on to class on time, that's on you. And I think that kind of is represented too with your college and your like career choices, right? You don't have bells telling you when to be at work and when to be, on lunch break. You have to know exactly when you're gonna, where you're going and when you have to be there. And that's something that university really, really drives home from day one.
Very interesting.
It really is like as close to college as you can get with a small 300-person school and a high school.
Nice. As Hudson and Jake and I were just saying, that would never work at North Central. And you have a 6-minute passing period there, which you said is fine. It's adequate enough to get where you're going. 6 minutes is actually a long time. Do you have something to add before we call it a night?
I just want to reiterate a point that was made at the beginning of the panel, which is most of the schools you're going to be looking at are good schools, whether they're public or private or big or small. I'd say it doesn't really matter where your friends are going. If you have just a couple things you keep in mind and shadow the schools you're interested in, you'll find the right one. When I went and shadowed at Rebuff, that's really one of the 2 high schools that really felt right to me, which is really what made me pick Rebuff.
Great.
So you'll find your place, you'll find your people no matter where you go. So you just gotta kind of have faith in that.
Very good advice. Mukan.
Another quick point I want to add is a lot of parents worry about competition in schools, especially big schools. And I just want to assure you guys that a lot of the people who go to Sycamore are some of the smartest kids in the state. And the competition that you'll see, you're already like quite a bit up there. Obviously you need to push yourself and push yourself more to be like #1 or something like that. But you're already up there. Don't worry that you're going to get pushed down by all these other kids.
I'm glad you said that, because notice none of my questions were how well did your Sycamore experience prepare you for high school, because that's really not why you're here. You know that their Sycamore experience is going to prepare them very well for high school. In some cases, some kids have come back and told me they were overly prepared for some subjects, correct? And also, there were some questions submitted about school spirit. And I know that at dinner we shared that everybody had their examples and said how happy they were at their school, and their school has a lot of spirit. And so Sycamore has a lot of spirit too, as well. And I was just wondering, as we wrap this up, does anybody remember any of the words to the Sycamore alma mater? When we sing that song at special occasions, and I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to sing the song. We're not going to sing. But there is a line in the song that I was thinking of tonight when I was standing here with you, and I think it gets repeated like a refrain. It's our great Sycamore. So do you see why these people were so highly recommended to me? Because they really are a great example of our alma mater, our great Sycamore. That's why when I said to your teachers, oh, Emily's coming, Sia's coming, Charlotte, Lauren, go on down the line, all the teachers were like, oh, that's wonderful, oh, they're going to do such a great job. They were right. So thank you all for coming. You did a fabulous job. I hope it was beneficial for you. I would like to thank Elizabeth, who was our tech support specialist. She's new this year, and she stayed here with me all evening to make sure that everything worked well, the microphones went well, and I'd like to thank you all for coming. And I'd like to thank you very much, and there's something there on the stage I want you to take before you leave, okay? I hope you have a great rest of the year, and it was very generous of you to give up a school night to come here. Okay. Thank you.